My brother's rehearsal dinner was supposed to be the happiest night of our family's year. Instead, I was sitting alone in my apartment in Austin at 11 p.m., watching the live stories on Instagram like a stranger peering through someone else's window. There he was, my brother Reef, laughing with his arm around his fiancée Tamara, both of them glowing in the warm patio lights of some rooftop restaurant in Nashville. My mother was in the background, her hair done, wearing the blue dress she'd bought specifically for this trip. My father was clinking glasses with Tamara's dad, looking like he belonged in a different tax bracket. Everyone was dressed up. Everyone was there. I was not. Not because I hadn't been invited. I had been. I'd gotten the save the date 8 months ago, the formal invitation 6 weeks later, and a follow-up text from my mother 3 weeks before asking if I'd booked my flight yet. I told her I couldn't make it. Work, I said. A deadline I couldn't move. That was only half a lie. The full truth was more complicated than I could explain over text without starting a war. I'm a licensed CPA. I run my own small accounting firm out of Boston. Just me and 2 part-time contractors, but it's mine. I built it from nothing after 6 years at a big firm, and I protect it the way some people protect their children. So when I say I couldn't leave during a client audit cycle, that's real. But the other part, the part I didn't say, was that I was tired. Tired of being the responsible one in a family that treated responsibility like an inconvenience. Tired of watching my brother float through his 20s on charm and borrowed money while everyone called him the fun one. Tired of being asked to show up for every celebration while being overlooked during every crisis unless they needed a check. Still, I watch the stories. I don't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe just the particular torture of feeling left out of something you chose to miss. I put my phone down at midnight, told myself I was done, and went to bed. I woke up at 4:09 a.m. to a vibration that didn't stop. I thought I'd left something on. Then I grabbed my phone and saw the screen. 34 missed calls. The number was almost funny, almost, except my stomach had already dropped through the mattress. Reef, 11 calls. My mother, 14 calls. My father, 6 calls. Tamara's mother, 3 calls. A number I didn't recognize once, and 47 text messages, starting with "call us" and escalating into something I had to read 3 times before I believed it. I called Reef first. He picked up immediately. His voice was wrong. It wasn't panicked exactly. It was that flat, hollow tone people get when they've been through several stages of panic already and come out the other side into something like numbness. "Hey," he said. Like we were running into each other at the grocery store. "Reef, what happened? Are you okay? Is anyone hurt?" "No one's hurt." A pause. "I mean, physically. What does that mean?" He exhaled slowly. "So, the rehearsal dinner. It was fine. It was good, and then we all went back to the hotel, and Tamara and I had a little argument, and I went to cool off at the hotel bar. And, Another pause. I ran into this woman. I sat up. "Reef, nothing happened. I swear, but someone took a photo of us talking and sent it to Mara, and she thinks. I mean, look, it doesn't matter what it looked like because nothing happened, but she's not hearing me right now, and she called off the wedding." I waited. "The wedding is tomorrow." "I know." "Reef, I know. Nellie." He'd called me Nellie. He hadn't called me that since we were kids. It was the nickname my grandmother gave me, short for Annelise, which is my actual name. No one used it anymore. He only pulled it out when he was genuinely scared. "Okay," I said. "So you need to talk to Tamara. You need to." "That's not why I'm calling," he said. "I mean, yes, that's happening, but that's not Nellie. There's something else." I felt the shift in the air even through the phone. The thing about being the responsible sibling is that you develop a very particular kind of radar. You learn to hear the difference between "I have a problem" and "I have a problem that's actually your problem." Reef's voice had just crossed that line. "Tell me," I said. "Okay, so, you know how the venue deposit was due 6 weeks ago? And Dad said he was going to handle it?" "I know what Dad said. He didn't pay it. He told the venue it was coming, and then he asked them to hold off, and they did for a week. And then they said they needed the deposit, or they'd release the date. How much was the deposit? $14,000. I felt the first cold prickle at the back of my neck. "Reef, where did the $14,000 come from?" Silence. "Reef, He said he had it handled. He said not to worry. Where did the money come from? Another silence. Then, very quietly, Tamara's parents put in 12. And Dad said he'd cover the rest and pay them back before the wedding. Did he pay them back? No. I pressed my fingers against my eyes. Does Tamara's family know that? They found out tonight. After everything blew up, her dad started going through the paperwork and realized the payment breakdown didn't add up. And then our dad, admitted it. Tamara's dad lost it. He's saying fraud. He's saying he's going to sue. Tamara's already upset about the photo, and now her parents are furious about the money, and everyone is screaming. And my dad is saying that if I can just get the money wired by morning, it'll all calm down. How much does he need? To pay back Tamara's family for the shortfall, cover the cancellation fees if the wedding doesn't happen, and settle the hotel bill because apparently our rooms were booked under a credit card that just got declined. He stopped, took a breath. $22,000. There it was. And he wants me to wire it, I said. He wants us to split it. But I don't have that kind of liquid cash right now, Nellie. You know my situation. I knew his situation. Reeve had been in between opportunities for 8 months, which was the family-approved way of saying he'd quit his sales job in a fit of frustration and had been living on savings ever since. He had money, just not a lot. Not $11,000 sitting around at 4 a.m. Put Dad on, I said. There was shuffling, a muffled exchange. Then my father's voice, and it was a voice I recognized, the one he used when he was performing calm because the alternative was admitting he was terrified, Annelise. He only used my full name when he was serious. Dad, tell me exactly what happened with the venue deposit. We can talk about the details later. Right now tell me, exactly, what happened. A pause. I intended to pay it. I had the money set aside, and then there was an issue with an investment. You know I've been working on that property deal with Franklin, and the closing got pushed, and the cash wasn't liquid when I needed it. So I asked the venue to extend, and Tamara's family was generous enough to front the majority, and I told them I'd reimburse within 2 weeks. That was 6 weeks ago. The deal fell through. Dad, I know. Dad, that's not your money. You took money from Tamara's parents and didn't pay it back, and now your son's wedding is collapsing, and you want me to wire $22,000 at 4 a.m. It's temporary. You know I'm good for it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you told Tamara's family you'd cover a commitment and then didn't, and now everyone is in a hotel in Nashville having the worst night of their lives, and somehow the answer is me opening my bank account. You have the money. His voice had shifted. Not to guilt yet, to something harder. Don't pretend you don't. You've been doing well, Annelise. We're proud of you, but right now your brother needs you. Your family needs you. And there it was, the pivot, from conversation to transaction. Put Mom on, I said. Another shuffle. My mother's voice was wet. She'd been crying. Honey, that single word carrying about 40 different emotions. Mom, I need you to tell me something honestly. Of course. Is this the only issue? Just the venue deposit and the hotel rooms? A pause that lasted exactly 1 second too long. What do you mean? I mean, is there anything else? Any other bills? Any other commitments that aren't covered? Annelise, I don't think this is the moment for. Mom. A very long silence. Then, haltingly, the florist. Your father put the florist deposit on a card that's full. I was going to move some things around, but I haven't had a chance. It's only $4,000, and the photographer's final payment is due the day of the wedding. They require it on site. That's $3,500. The cold prickle at the back of my neck had spread down my spine. So we're not talking about $22,000. Annelise, we're talking closer to $30,000. When you add it all up, technically, but Mom. Stop. I stood up. I walked to my desk without knowing why. Some instinct, muscle memory from years of working through problems by pacing. I need to check something. Stay on the line. I set the phone on my desk and opened my laptop. I told myself I was just going to look at my bank balance, confirm what I had, think through the logistics. I opened my bank's portal. I logged in. The account summary loaded. I stared at it. Then I opened the credit monitoring app I'd set up 2 years ago after a client of mine had her identity stolen. I checked it every few weeks out of habit. I hadn't looked in about a month. The dashboard opened. At the top, a yellow alert, not red yellow, which meant it had been there for a while and I'd missed it. Hard inquiry, 23 days ago. Creditor Meridian Lending Group. Type, personal installment loan. Amount requested, $18,000. Status, approved. My hands went still on the keyboard. I clicked through. The inquiry had originated from an IP address in Franklin, Tennessee. My parents live in Franklin, Tennessee. The loan account had been opened in my name. The address on the application was my old address, the apartment I'd lived in before I moved to Austin, the one my parents had helped me move out of 3 years ago and apparently still had the address for. The application listed my social security number, my date of birth, my employer, my own firm, my own EIN. The monthly payments, 4 of them, had been set to auto-pay from a routing number I didn't recognize. I sat very still for a moment, then I picked up the phone. "Mom," I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar, stripped of everything except information. "Honey, are you still there? Did you figure out who applied for a loan in my name?" Absolute silence. "I'm looking at my credit report right now. Meridian Lending Group, $18,000, opened 23 days ago. Franklin, Tennessee IP address, my social security number, my old address. Mom, who applied for this loan?" The silence stretched for 7 full seconds. I counted. Then my mother said, very quietly, "Your father needed the deposit money." I let that sentence sit in the air. He took out a loan, in my name. He was going to pay it back before you ever saw it. It's only $300 a month, and he said he'd handle all the payments. He committed fraud. Annelise, don't use that word. It's family. That's not a rebuttal to fraud, Mom. That's the description of who did it. He didn't have a choice. His credit score, with the property deal falling through, the banks wouldn't approve him. And your credit is perfect. You've worked so hard, and it's just sitting there, and he needed it for 1 month, for a wedding I wasn't even attending. She made a sound. Half protest, half sob. "You used my identity to take out a loan to fund a wedding you knew I disapproved of, for a son you knew would never pay it back, and now you're calling me at 4 in the morning to wire more money on top of it. If you don't help us, this becomes your debt." Her voice had gone somewhere harder. "The loan is in your name. The lender is going to come after you. Your credit, your license, your business, everything you've built could stop." I said it very quietly. "I know what you're doing. I'm telling you the truth. You're telling me that you've already put me in a trap, and my only way out is to give you more money to protect myself. I've heard this math before, Mom. I'm an accountant." "Annelise, please. I need you to put the phone down for a second." "What?" "I need 30 seconds. Put the phone on the table." I heard her set it down. I could still hear background noise, voices, someone crying, a TV on somewhere. I opened a new tab on my laptop. I pulled up the number for the non-emergency fraud reporting line for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which I had saved in my contacts because I'm the kind of person who saves numbers like that. I also pulled up the phone number for my bank's 24-hour fraud line, and then I looked up the Franklin, Tennessee Police Department's non-emergency line. Then I picked up my phone and asked my mother to hand it to my father. He came on immediately. He'd been waiting. "Annelise, I know this is a lot, but you have to understand I did what I did because I love your brother, because I wanted this day to be, Dad, I need to ask you one question." "Okay, did you sign my name on the loan application?" A pause. "There's an e-signature process. I had your old login from when you asked me to help with something years ago. Did you sign my name on a legal financial document without my knowledge or consent?" Another pause. "I was going to tell you," he said, "after the wedding, when things settled down. I was going to explain everything." I exhaled slowly. "Okay," I said. "I love you. I want you to know that because what I'm about to do is not about not loving you. It's about the fact that what you did is a crime, and if I pay the money and stay quiet, I become part of the cover-up. Annelise, I'm calling the fraud line from my bank right now. I'm going to report the unauthorized loan. I'm going to flag the application and dispute it on my credit report. And then I'm going to call the CFPB and file a report with them. I would strongly suggest that you contact a lawyer in Nashville tonight because Tamara's family is already talking about legal action, and when my fraud report goes in, there may be additional questions." My father's voice changed completely. The performance of calm fell away, and underneath it was something raw and almost childlike. "You can't do this to us. We are your family. Your brother, Tamara. Do you understand what this night has already been for us? And you're going to make it worse. You made it worse, Dad. 23 days ago, you made it worse. Please." His voice cracked. "Please, Nellie." And there it was again. Nellie. The same word Reef had used, the childhood word, the one designed to reach past the adult I'd become and pull up the little girl who just wanted her family to be okay. I felt it land. I felt the pull of it. I won't pretend I didn't. But I also thought about the yellow alert on my dashboard, the one that had been sitting there for 23 days while I worked and slept and lived my life without knowing someone had borrowed it, without knowing my name had been signed to something I'd never agreed to. And I thought about the call I hadn't taken at midnight and the Instagram stories and the blue dress my mother had bought for a trip funded in part by my stolen credit. "I love you," I said again. "Get a lawyer." I hung up. The next 2 hours were the strangest of my life. Not because they were dramatic, they weren't. They were methodical. I called my bank's fraud line. I spoke to a representative named Angela who had the calm, efficient demeanor of someone who handled these calls every day, which she probably did. I explained the situation. She opened a case. She flagged the Meridian loan and initiated a dispute. She told me the loan payments would be suspended pending investigation and that I should not make any payments toward the account under any circumstances. I thanked her. I pulled up all 3 credit bureaus and placed a fraud alert on each one. Then I placed a security freeze, which is the stronger option. It means no new credit can be opened in my name without an additional verification step. I should have done it years ago. I did it at 5:17 a.m. while drinking water out of a glass I'd forgotten I'd left on my desk. I filed an initial report with the CFPB through their online portal. I documented the loan details, the IP address, the timeline. Then I drafted an email to my attorney, a woman I'd worked with since I opened my firm, laying out what had happened and attaching screenshots of the credit report, the inquiry details, and the account information. I marked it urgent and sent it at 6:04 a.m., with a note asking her to call me when her day started. I did not call Reef back. I did not respond to my mother's 11 text messages, which started as pleading and ended with 3 lines of all caps. I couldn't read all the way through without feeling a complicated mix of sad and strangely free. I did not respond to the extended family members who had apparently been roped in. My Aunt Deb sent me a message that began, "I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding." And a cousin I barely spoke to asked if I was really going to do this to Reef on the night before his wedding. I put my phone face down on the counter. Then I went to the window and watched Austin do what Austin does in the early morning. Runners and delivery trucks and someone walking a very large dog at a pace that suggested neither of them were fully awake yet. I want to tell you I felt righteous. I want to say there was some surge of power or clarity or whatever word people use when they describe finally standing up for themselves. But that's not quite what it was. What it actually felt like was tired, a very specific kind of tired that lives behind the eyes, the kind you feel when something you'd been pretending wasn't true turns out to be exactly as true as you feared. My family had not made a mistake. Mistakes are unintentional. What my father did took planning. He had to locate my old login credentials, research the lender, fill out the application, input my SSN, use my employer information, e-sign my name. That's not a moment of poor judgment. That's a series of deliberate choices made over what was probably several hours, and my mother had known. I was certain of that now. The slight hesitation when I asked if there was anything else, the way she'd said, "Your father needed to deposit money," without any surprise in her voice, like she'd been rehearsing what to say if I found out. They had decided my identity was a resource they were entitled to use. That was the thing I kept coming back to as the sun came up. Not the money, not even the legal exposure, the entitlement, the certainty that my credit score, my name, my professional standing, things I had built carefully over a decade of not making the choices they made, were somehow available to them without asking. like they belonged to the family, not to me. My attorney called at 8:47 a.m. We talked for 40 minutes. She confirmed that what my father had done constituted identity theft under both federal and state law, regardless of his intentions or his relationship to me. She walked me through my options. She was direct and clear and did not once suggest that I consider the family implications, which I appreciated more than I could say. I told her to proceed. 3 weeks later, the unauthorized loan was fully reversed by Meridian Lending Group after my bank's fraud investigation confirmed the application had been filed without my authorization. My credit report was corrected. The security freeze remained in place. I've kept it in place since then, and I intend to keep it. My father was not arrested. I want to be clear about that because I know that's what people wonder. He was contacted by the lender's fraud department and gave a statement. He hired a lawyer. Whether any charges are pursued is not entirely up to me. A fraud report, once filed, has its own momentum, but as of now, he has not been charged with anything. Reef's wedding did not happen that weekend. Tamara called it off. I don't know the full details, and I've made a point of not seeking them out because it's not my story to carry. From what I understand, they've since had some conversations. I genuinely don't know what the future holds for them. My mother called me 12 days after that night. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was in the middle of a client call, so I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that was 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. I've listened to it twice. She said she was sorry. She said she hoped I understood they hadn't meant to hurt me. She said that she wished things had been different. She did not say that what they did was wrong. She said she was sorry I was hurt, which is not the same sentence. I haven't called her back yet. I've thought about what I would say if I did. I've thought about it more than I expected to. In the shower, on runs, in those odd 5 minutes between the end of one task and the beginning of the next. What I keep coming back to is this. I spent most of my adult life being the safety net, the one who answered at 2 a.m., who wired money, who said yes when I should have said, let me think about it. I told myself that was love. I told myself that was love. I told myself that's what family meant. What I understand now is that I confused love with availability. I made myself endlessly available, financially, emotionally, logistically, and they mistook that availability for an open account. They didn't see a person deciding to help. They saw a resource that defaulted to yes. The fraud was just the most honest version of something that had been happening for years. At least this time it showed up in a document I could read. I still live in Austin. My firm is doing well. We took on 2 new clients in the past month, and I've been thinking about hiring a 3rd contractor full-time. I drink too much coffee and not enough water, and I've been trying to fix that with a medium level of success. I have a credit freeze on all 3 bureaus. I have an attorney who knows my name. I have an apartment I pay for myself in a city I chose, doing work that is mine. That's not nothing. Most days it doesn't feel like nothing at all. I've thought a lot about what I could have done differently. Not that night. I'm at peace with what I did that night. But before it, years before it, there were signs. There were always signs. The calls that came when money was short, the silences when things were fine. The way my father's voice softened right before he needed something, and the way my mother found a reason every single time to explain why this situation was an exception, why this time was different, why family meant absorbing the cost without complaint. I saw the signs, and I told myself it was just how some families worked. I told myself I was lucky to be able to help. What I didn't understand then, and what I understand completely now, is that there is a difference between choosing to give and being treated as a source. When you choose to give, the other person knows you could say no. They feel the weight of what you're offering. They say thank you and mean it. But when you become a source, the dynamic shifts quietly over years until the people around you stop asking and start expecting. And the moment you stop delivering, you're not just disappointing them. You're breaking a system they built without your consent. My father didn't decide one morning to commit fraud. He decided over many years that my resources were part of the family's shared pool. He decided that my good credit, my stable income, my careful choices were assets that belonged to all of us. The loan was just the logical end of that thinking taken one step too far. He didn't think of it as stealing. He thought of it as accessing something that was already, in his mind, partially his. That's the part that took me the longest to sit with. Not the anger, The anger was easy, it arrived fast, and it made sense. The harder thing was understanding how we got there, how I had participated, without meaning to, in building a dynamic where my boundaries were suggestions and my finances were communal property. Every time I wired money without pushback, every time I said yes when I wanted to say let me think about it, every time I absorbed a consequence that wasn't mine to absorb, I was teaching them something I didn't mean to, but I was. Reef called me 6 weeks after that night. He didn't ask for money. He just said he was sorry and that he hadn't known about the loan until I'd already reported it and that he believed me. It was a short call. I cried a little after I hung up, which surprised me. I think I cried because I'd been bracing for another version of that night, another demand wrapped in love language, and instead I got something that sounded like my actual brother. We haven't talked much since. But that call exists, and I'm glad it does. What I know now is this: integrity isn't just about what you do when people are watching. It's about what you do at 4 a.m. when you're exhausted and scared and every person you grew up loving is on the other side of the phone asking you to stay quiet. Annelise made one call that morning that cost her something real. Not just money, not just a family holiday, but the comfortable story she'd been telling herself about who her family was. That kind of honesty takes more out of you than people realize. But the alternative, paying, covering, staying silent, would have cost more. It would have cost her the one thing that actually belonged entirely to her, her name.